The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Kensington Palace, as Prince William walked slowly through the corridors he had known since childhood. His footsteps echoed softly on the polished marble floors, each step carrying the weight of recent conversations that had kept him awake most of the night. Kate had been in the garden with Charlotte and Louis, their laughter drifting through the open windows like a gentle melody. William paused at a window, watching his wife help their daughter plant small flowers in the royal garden beds. The sight usually brought him comfort, but today something felt different. There was a heaviness in his chest that he couldn't quite explain. His grandmother's words from their last private meeting kept returning to him. Queen Elizabeth had pulled him aside just weeks before her passing, her aged hands trembling slightly as she placed a small, ornate key in his palm. "This belongs to you now, William," she had whispered, her voice barely audible. "When the time feels right, you'll know what to do with it." The key had remained in his desk drawer for months, almost forgotten among the daily responsibilities of royal duties, public appearances, and family life. But lately something had been calling him back to it. Perhaps it was the way Kate had been looking at him recently, with a mixture of understanding and concern in her eyes. She knew him too well, could sense when something was weighing on his mind even when he tried to hide it. William reached his private study and opened the heavy wooden drawer. The key lay exactly where he had left it, small and silver with intricate engravings that caught the morning light. His grandmother had mentioned something about his grandfather's study, a room that had remained locked since Prince Philip's death. "There are things there that belong to the family's future, not its past," she had said cryptically. As he held the key, memories flooded back of his grandfather's stern but loving presence. Prince Philip had been a man of few words but deep wisdom, someone who understood the burden of supporting the monarchy from behind the scenes. William had always admired how his grandfather had carved out his own path while remaining devoted to duty and family. The locked study was located in a quieter wing of the palace, past portraits of long-departed royals, and through corridors that seemed to hold the whispers of history itself. William had walked past the door countless times, never thinking much about what might be inside. It was just another room in a palace full of rooms, each with its own stories and secrets. But now, with the key in his hand, the door seemed to call to him. His heart began to beat faster as he approached it, uncertainty mixing with curiosity. What had his grandmother wanted him to find? What could be so important that it required this moment of readiness she had spoken about? The morning was still young, and he knew Kate would be occupied with the children for at least another hour. This felt like something he needed to discover alone first, to understand before he could share it with anyone else. His marriage to Kate had taught him the importance of processing difficult emotions before bringing them to the family table. As he stood before the door, William thought about the changes their family had experienced recently. The loss of the Queen had shifted everything, bringing new responsibilities and deeper awareness of their roles in the monarchy's future. Kate had handled it all with her usual grace, but he could see the strain in her eyes during quiet moments when she thought no one was watching. He inserted the key into the lock, surprised by how smoothly it turned despite years of disuse. The door opened with a soft creak, revealing a room filled with afternoon light streaming through tall windows. The space was smaller than he had expected, more intimate, with personal touches that spoke of his grandfather's private moments away from public duties. The walls were lined with bookshelves, and a large wooden desk dominated the center of the room. But what immediately caught William's attention was something unexpected. Dozens of carefully preserved letters tied with ribbons, photographs arranged in albums, and what appeared to be a leather-bound journal sitting open on the desk as if Prince Philip had just stepped away from writing in it. William's breath caught in his throat as he realized what he was looking at. This wasn't just a study. It was a repository of family history, emotions, and thoughts that his grandfather had kept private throughout his decades of public service. The vulnerable personal side of a man the world had known as stoic and formal. He approached the desk slowly, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the journal. The pages were filled with his grandfather's distinctive handwriting, and as his eyes scanned the words, he began to understand why his grandmother had given him the key. These weren't just random thoughts, they were insights, struggles, and profound observations about family, duty, and love that Prince Philip had never shared with anyone. One entry near the end caught his attention immediately. The hardest part of loving this family is knowing that your greatest act of love might be your most private one. William will understand this someday when he faces his own impossible choices. William's hand shook as he turned the pages of his grandfather's journal, each entry revealing layers of the man he thought he had known. The afternoon light shifted across the room as he lost himself in Prince Philip's private thoughts, written during the most challenging moments of his royal life. One entry dated from William's childhood made him pause completely. Watched William at the garden party today. He has the same look Diana used to get when she was trying to shield the boys from the photographers. That protective instinct will serve him well, but it will also break his heart regularly. I pray he finds someone who understands that loving a future king means sharing his burden, not adding to it. The mention of his mother's name sent a wave of emotion through William that he wasn't prepared for. His grandfather had seen things, understood things about their family dynamics that he had never spoken aloud. But here, in the privacy of his locked study, Prince Philip had allowed himself to be vulnerable and honest about the complexities of royal life. William moved to one of the ribbon-tied bundles of letters on the shelf. As he carefully untied the faded blue ribbon, he discovered something that made his breath catch in his throat. These were letters between his grandparents, written during the most difficult periods of their marriage. Not the formal, proper correspondence that royal biographers might expect, but raw, honest communications between two people trying to navigate an impossible situation together. In one letter, his grandmother had written, "Philip, I know the protocol says we shouldn't discuss our personal feelings about the children's struggles, but I'm watching Charles suffer, and I don't know how to help him without overstepping my role as queen. Sometimes I wonder if I'm failing as a mother, because I'm trying so hard to succeed as a monarch." His grandfather's response, written in his distinctive handwriting, was equally revealing. "Elizabeth, you are not failing anyone. The institution demands impossible things from us, and somehow you've managed to be both a devoted mother and an exemplary queen. Our children's struggles aren't a reflection of your failures. They're evidence of how difficult it is to be human within these golden constraints." William sank into his grandfather's chair, overwhelmed by the realization that his grandparents had struggled with the same questions that kept him awake at night. How do you balance personal happiness with public duty? How do you protect your children while preparing them for roles they never chose? How do you maintain a marriage when the entire world is watching and judging every interaction? Another bundle contained letters that appeared to be drafts of conversations Prince Philip had planned to have with family members, but never sent. One addressed to William himself, dated just a few months before Prince Philip's death, began, "My dear William, by the time you read this, you'll be facing decisions I once faced. The weight of knowing that your choices affect not just your immediate family, but the institution itself, is something no amount of preparation can truly ready you for." The letter continued, "I've watched you with Catherine, and I see something beautiful that gives me hope for the future of our family. She doesn't try to change you or diminish you to make herself more comfortable. Instead, she seems to understand that your strength supports not just her and your children, but something much larger. That kind of partnership is rare in any marriage, but in ours it's essential for survival." William's eyes filled with tears as he read his grandfather's observations about Kate. "Catherine has something your grandmother had when she was young, an inner strength that doesn't require validation from others. She can stand beside you without needing to stand in your shadow or in your light. She creates her own space while remaining part of the larger picture. This is the kind of woman who can help you carry the weight you've inherited." But it was the final paragraph of the letter that completely undid him. "The secret I wish I could have told you face to face is this. The most important moments of your reign won't be the public ones. They'll be the private moments when you choose love over protocol, when you choose your family's humanity over the institution's expectations. Your grandmother and I learned this too late with our own children, but you and Catherine still have time to do it differently." William set the letter down, his vision blurred by tears he hadn't expected. His grandfather had seen something in his marriage that even he was still learning to recognize. The way Kate had quietly revolutionized what it meant to be a royal spouse, not through dramatic gestures or public statements, but through her steady, authentic presence in their family's life. He thought about the conversation he and Kate had been avoiding for weeks now. The decision about how much of their private life to share with the public, how to protect their children while still fulfilling their roles as future leaders of the monarchy. Kate had been patient with his indecision, but he could see the concern in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. Moving to another section of the room, William discovered a collection of photographs he had never seen before. Pictures of his grandparents in unguarded moments, laughing together during private holidays, comforting each other during family crises, sharing quiet conversations away from cameras and courtiers. These images showed a side of their relationship that the public had never been allowed to see. One photograph particularly caught his attention. It showed his grandmother sitting alone in this very study, reading one of Prince Philip's letters with tears streaming down her face. On the back, in his grandfather's handwriting, was a single sentence: "Even queens are allowed to cry in private." William realized that his grandmother had given him this key not just to discover his grandfather's thoughts, but to understand that vulnerability and strength weren't opposites in royal life. They were partners. The strongest leaders were those who allowed themselves to feel deeply while still carrying their responsibilities with dignity. As William continued exploring his grandfather's private sanctuary, he discovered a locked drawer within the large desk. Using a smaller key attached to the main one, he carefully opened it to find something that made his heart race. Inside was a thick folder marked with his father's name, containing documents and correspondence that painted a picture of Prince Charles's struggles that William had never fully understood. The folder revealed the enormous pressure his father had faced as a young man, caught between personal desires and royal expectations. Letters from advisors criticized Charles's every decision, his choice of friends, even his interests in architecture and environmental causes. One particularly harsh memo suggested that the future king was too sensitive and too willing to express personal opinions for the role he would inherit, but more touching were Prince Philip's private notes defending his son. "Charles feels everything deeply," his grandfather had written. "The courtiers see this as weakness, but I believe it could be his greatest strength if he learns to channel it properly. The monarchy needs someone who understands the human cost of decisions, not just their political implications." William thought about his own father, remembering the countless times Charles had been criticized in the media for being too emotional or too involved in causes that mattered to him. Reading his grandfather's perspective made William realize that what some viewed as Charles's weaknesses were actually evidence of his deep caring for both the institution and the people it served. Another section of the folder contained Prince Philip's observations about Diana, written during the early years of his parents' marriage. The entries were surprisingly compassionate, showing a man who had tried to understand and support a young woman thrust into an impossible situation. "Diana arrived in our world like a bright light, but bright lights can be overwhelming in spaces designed for shadows," Prince Philip had written. "She wants to connect with people in ways the institution has never allowed, and I fear we're asking her to choose between being authentic and being acceptable. No one should have to make that choice." The final entry about Diana, written after her death, was barely legible through Prince Philip's obvious emotion. "I failed her. We all failed her. She was trying to show us a different way to be royal, a way that included genuine human connection, and we were too frightened of change to listen. William and Harry will need to find their own balance between duty and authenticity, and I pray they do it better than we did." William had to step away from the desk, overwhelmed by the weight of these revelations. His grandfather, whom he had always seen as the epitome of stoic royal duty, had actually been deeply conflicted about the system he had spent his life supporting. Prince Philip had seen the human cost of royal protocols and traditions, but had felt powerless to change them. Moving to another part of the room, William found a series of journals dedicated specifically to thoughts about the future of the monarchy. His grandfather had been thinking far ahead, imagining how William and Kate might navigate challenges that hadn't even arisen yet. One entry, dated just 2 years earlier, felt prophetic. "William will face a choice that Charles never had to make. The world has changed so much that the old ways of maintaining royal mystique may no longer serve the institution's survival. Catherine represents something new: authenticity without drama, accessibility without loss of dignity. If William can find the courage to trust her instincts about connecting with people, they might save the monarchy by making it more human, not less. Another entry discussed the challenges of raising royal children in the modern world. George, Charlotte, and Louis will grow up with social media, instant global communication, and expectations of transparency that previous generations never faced. William and Catherine will need to prepare them for scrutiny we never imagined, while still allowing them to develop genuine personalities and relationships. William found himself nodding as he read, recognizing concerns he and Kate discussed regularly in private. How do you give your children normal experiences while preparing them for extraordinary responsibilities? How do you teach them to be genuine when so much of royal life requires careful performance? The most surprising discovery came in a folder marked, "For William's Eyes Only." Inside were detailed observations his grandfather had made about Kate, from their dating years through their marriage and parenthood. Prince Philip had been watching and analyzing Kate's approach to royal life with the keen eye of someone who understood its complexities intimately. "Catherine has mastered something I never managed," one entry read. "She can be completely herself while still respecting the institution's requirements. She doesn't seem to view royal protocol as a constraint on her personality, but rather as a framework within which she can express her authentic self. This is extraordinary and rare." Another observation was even more insightful. She supports William not by diminishing herself, but by being so secure in her own worth that his success doesn't threaten her identity. She celebrates his achievements without needing to compete, and challenges him without undermining him. This kind of partnership could revolutionize how royal couples function. But it was the final note about Kate that brought tears to William's eyes. "I believe Catherine could teach the entire royal family how to be human without being common, how to be accessible without losing dignity, how to show emotion without creating drama. If William has the wisdom to truly listen to her, she could help him become the kind of king the modern world needs." William realized that his grandfather had seen qualities in Kate that even he was still discovering. Prince Philip had recognized that Kate represented not just a perfect royal spouse, but a bridge between the monarchy's traditional values and the authentic human connection that modern people craved from their leaders. The weight of this recognition settled on William's shoulders. His grandfather hadn't just been observing Kate's adjustment to royal life. He had been documenting evidence of her potential to help transform the institution itself. Prince Philip had seen in Kate the possibility of evolution rather than revolution, change that honored tradition while embracing progress. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the study, William understood why his grandmother had waited to give him the key. He had needed to mature in his role, to develop confidence in his own judgment before he could handle the responsibility of these insights. The revelations in this room weren't just about understanding the past, they were about making better choices for the future. William sat in his grandfather's chair as the afternoon sun painted golden stripes across the study floor. The weight of everything he had discovered pressed against his chest, making it difficult to breathe normally. His phone buzzed with a text from Kate. "The children are asking for you. Louis wants to show you his flower planting. Take your time, but we'll be here when you're ready." Even in a simple text message, Kate somehow knew exactly what he needed to hear. She sensed his need for space without making him feel guilty about taking it. This understanding, this intuitive support, was exactly what his grandfather had recognized and documented so carefully in these private writings. William turned to the final section he hadn't yet explored. A collection of sealed envelopes, each marked with different family members' names. His own name was written on the thickest envelope, and with trembling hands, he broke the wax seal that had kept his grandfather's final thoughts private until this moment. Inside was a letter dated just weeks before Prince Philip's death, written in a shakier version of his grandfather's familiar handwriting. "My dearest William, if you are reading this, then Elizabeth has decided you are ready to understand what I could never tell you while I was alive. The monarchy is not dying, but it must change to survive, and you and Catherine are the key to that transformation." The letter continued. "I spent my life supporting an institution that demanded personal sacrifice from everyone it touched. Your grandmother sacrificed parts of her identity to be queen. I sacrificed my naval career and many personal ambitions to be her consort. Your father sacrificed his first chance at authentic love to marry someone deemed suitable. But you, William, You found someone who makes you stronger rather than requiring you to become smaller. William's vision blurred as he read his grandfather's most personal thoughts. Catherine doesn't just compliment you, she completes a vision of what royal leadership could become. She has shown that it's possible to be genuine without being undignified, accessible without being common, emotional without being dramatic. The public loves her because she reflects their own values while still maintaining the mystery and respect that monarchy requires. But it was the next paragraph that stopped William's breath entirely. The decision you're struggling with right now, I can't tell you what it is specifically, but I know you're facing it because every future king faces it. The moment when you must choose between what the institution expects and what your heart knows is right for your family and your future reign. Choose your heart, William. Choose Catherine's wisdom. Choose the path that honors both duty and humanity. The letter concluded with words that would echo in William's mind forever. The greatest gift you can give your children is not a perfect monarchy, but an honest one. Show them that being royal doesn't mean being inhuman. Let them see you make mistakes and learn from them. Allow them to witness love, compromise, and genuine partnership in your marriage. These lessons will serve them far better than any amount of protocol training. William set the letter aside and opened his phone to scroll through recent photos of his family, Kate helping Charlotte with homework, while Louis climbed on her back. George seriously explaining something to his mother, while she listened with complete attention. Kate laughing at something William had said during a private moment captured by their personal photographer. These images told a story that the public rarely saw, a story of genuine partnership, authentic parenting, and real love existing within the framework of royal duty. His grandfather had been right. Kate hadn't diminished herself to fit into the royal family. She had expanded what it meant to be royal by bringing her complete, authentic self to the role. The decision that had been weighing on William's mind for weeks suddenly became clear. The royal advisors had been pressuring him to maintain more distance from the public, to follow traditional protocols that kept the family's private life completely separate from their public duties. They argued that mystery and formality were essential to maintaining royal authority and respect. But Kate had been gently suggesting a different approach. Not abandoning dignity or protocol, but finding ways to let their genuine personalities and values shine through their public roles. She believed that people needed to see their leaders as both extraordinary and relatable, both capable of handling great responsibility and humble enough to admit uncertainty. The conversation they had been avoiding was about how to raise George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that prepared them for their future roles while still allowing them normal childhood experiences. The institution favored strict separation between public and private life, but Kate advocated for a more integrated approach that would help their children develop authentic personalities alongside royal training. William realized that his grandfather's letters had given him permission to trust Kate's instincts, to value her perspective not just as his wife, but as a partner whose insights about leadership and authenticity could help shape the monarchy's future. Prince Philip had seen what William was still learning to see, that Kate's approach to royal life wasn't a departure from tradition, but an evolution of it. He thought about the times Kate had suggested small changes that initially made him nervous, but ultimately strengthened their public connection. Her idea to share more candid family moments during official visits, her suggestion that they respond more personally to public tragedies, her instinct to let their children's personalities show during public appearances, rather than coaching them to be completely formal. Each time, Kate had been right. The public had responded positively not because the royal family was abandoning dignity, but because they were demonstrating that dignity and authenticity could coexist. People respected leaders who were both capable and human, both strong and vulnerable when appropriate. William stood up from his grandfather's chair and walked to the window overlooking the garden where his family was still playing. Kate was pushing Louis on a swing while George and Charlotte chased each other around the flower beds they had planted together. The sight filled him with a certainty that had been eluding him for weeks. His grandfather had spent decades supporting a system that often required choosing between personal happiness and public duty. But Prince Philip had recognized that William and Kate had the opportunity to prove that this choice might be a false one. Perhaps the most effective royal leaders were those who brought their complete, authentic selves to their public roles, who led with both their heads and their hearts. William carefully gathered the most important letters and placed them back in their respective folders, his mind racing with the weight of what he had discovered. As he prepared to leave his grandfather's study, he noticed one final item he had missed, a small wooden box tucked behind some books on the highest shelf. Inside the box was something that made his breath catch, a collection of photographs of Kate that Prince Philip had apparently taken himself during family gatherings over the years. These weren't official portraits or formal occasions, but candid moments that captured her natural grace and genuine interactions with family members. One photograph showed Kate listening intently to Queen Elizabeth during what appeared to be a private conversation in the palace gardens. Another captured her teaching Prince Philip how to use an iPad, both of them laughing at something on the screen. But the most touching image was one of Kate comforting William during what looked like a difficult moment. Her hand on his shoulder, her face full of understanding and strength. On the back of this last photograph, Prince Philip had written, "The future of the monarchy lives in moments like this when strength and vulnerability meet, when duty and love become the same thing." William realized that his grandfather hadn't just been observing Kate's integration into the family. He had been documenting evidence of something transformative happening to the institution itself through her presence. These photographs were proof that authenticity and royal dignity could not only coexist but could actually strengthen each other. As he locked the study door behind him, William felt the weight of decision settling into determination. He walked through the palace corridors with new purpose, his grandfather's insights giving him the courage to trust what his heart had been telling him for months. He found Kate in the children's playroom, helping Louis with a puzzle while George read nearby, and Charlotte practiced piano in the adjacent music room. The scene was so perfectly ordinary and yet so precious that William paused in the doorway, seeing his family through his grandfather's eyes, a beautiful example of how royal life could embrace both tradition and genuine human connection. "How was your morning?" Kate asked, looking up from the puzzle with the kind of attentive concern that told him she had sensed the significance of whatever had kept him away from the family. "I need to show you something," William said, his voice carrying an emotion that made Kate immediately give him her full attention. "Louis, can you work on your puzzle with George for a few minutes? Mommy and Daddy need to have a quick chat." Kate followed him to their private sitting room, her expression growing more curious as she noticed the folder of documents in his hands. William sat beside her on the familiar sofa where they had shared so many important conversations throughout their marriage. "Remember the key my grandmother gave me?" William began, his voice slightly unsteady. "I finally used it today." He told her about his grandfather's study, about the letters and journals, about the insights Prince Philip had recorded over decades of royal service. Kate listened without interruption, her expression shifting from curiosity to amazement to deep emotion as William shared his discoveries. When he showed her the letter Prince Philip had written about her specifically, Kate's eyes filled with tears. "He really saw all of that?" she whispered, touching the paper gently as if it contained something sacred. "He saw what I'm still learning to see," William admitted. "He understood that you weren't just adapting to royal life. You were showing us how royal life could evolve to be more authentic and connected while still maintaining its dignity and purpose." Kate was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the magnitude of what William had shared. "It's overwhelming to think that he was watching and analyzing everything so carefully," she said finally. "But also, it's comforting to know that someone understood what I was trying to do, even when I wasn't always sure myself." William reached for her hand. "Kate, the conversation we've been avoiding about the children, about how much of our real selves to share publicly, about finding the balance between accessibility and mystery, I think we've been overthinking it." He pulled out his grandfather's letter about choosing heart over institution. "What if the answer isn't about finding balance but about integration? What if we show George, Charlotte, and Louis that being royal doesn't mean hiding who you really are, but finding ways to serve through who you really are?" Kate's face lit up with understanding. "You mean stop seeing authenticity and royal duty as competing forces?" "Exactly," William said, feeling more certain than he had in months. "My grandfather spent his life believing those were choices that had to be made, but he recognized that we have the opportunity to prove they don't have to be." Kate squeezed his hand. "The children would grow up seeing that leadership means bringing your whole self to service, not sacrificing yourself for service." They talked for another hour about practical implications. How to respond to the advisors who preferred traditional separation between public and private life. How to gradually introduce more authentic elements into their public roles without shocking the institution or the public. How to prepare their children for future responsibilities while allowing them to develop genuine personalities. But more than the practical details, they talked about the relief of finally having a clear direction. Kate's instincts about connection and authenticity weren't departures from royal tradition, they were the next evolution of it. Prince Philip's documentation had given them historical perspective and permission to trust their own judgment about what their family needed and what the monarchy needed. "There's something else," William said, showing Kate the photograph Prince Philip had taken of her comforting him. "He saw us at our most vulnerable moment, and instead of viewing it as weakness, he saw it as the future of royal leadership." Kate studied the image, remembering the difficult day when it was taken. "I was just being myself, trying to support you the way any wife would support her husband." "That's exactly the point," William said. "You didn't try to be the perfect royal spouse. You just were yourself, and being yourself made you perfect for this role in ways the traditional rules never could have achieved." As evening approached and they prepared for dinner with the children, Kate felt a profound shift in how she understood her place in the royal family. She wasn't an outsider who had successfully adapted to royal life. She was someone whose authentic self had actually enhanced what it meant to be royal, had shown that genuine humanity could strengthen rather than weaken the institution's authority and respect. That evening, after the children were tucked into bed, William and Kate sat in their private garden as twilight painted the sky in soft purples and golds. The weight of the day's revelations hung between them, but it felt like a comfortable weight now, the weight of shared understanding rather than uncertain burden. "I keep thinking about something your grandfather wrote," Kate said, her voice soft in the evening air. "About how the hardest part of loving this family is knowing that your greatest act of love might be your most private one." "Do you think he was talking about the sacrifices or something else?" William considered this, remembering the tenderness in his grandfather's private writings compared to his public persona. "I think he meant that the most important things we do for the family and the institution might never be recognized publicly. The quiet support, the difficult conversations, the moments when we choose each other's well-being over what looks good in the press." Kate nodded, understanding dawning in her expression. "Like all the times you've protected the children from public scrutiny, even when it might have been good publicity to include them more. Or when you've supported me through difficult adjustments without making a public show of being the perfect husband." "Exactly. And like how you've quietly revolutionized what it means to be a royal spouse without ever making it seem like you were criticizing the women who came before you." William reached for her hand. "My grandfather saw that kind of strength in you from the beginning." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both processing the implications of Prince Philip's insights. Finally, Kate spoke again. "The meeting with the advisors next week about the children's education and public exposure. I think we know what we need to say now." William had been dreading that meeting for weeks. The advisors wanted to significantly increase the children's formal royal training and public appearances, arguing that early exposure to protocol and duty was essential for their future roles. But both he and Kate had felt instinctively that their children needed more time to develop their own identities before fully embracing their royal responsibilities. "We tell them that we're taking a different approach," William said with newfound confidence. "Not abandoning royal preparation, but integrating it with authentic childhood experiences. We let George, Charlotte, and Louis see how we balance duty with genuine family life, how we serve through being ourselves rather than despite being ourselves." Kate smiled, feeling the relief of alignment after weeks of uncertainty. "And we explain that this isn't about making them normal children, it's about raising them to be extraordinary leaders who happen to also be genuine human beings." The conversation turned to practical concerns. How would they handle criticism from traditionalists who believed that royal children should be shielded from normal experiences? How would they respond to media pressure for more access as the children grew older? How would they prepare George specifically for his future role as king while still allowing him to be a child? "I think the answer is in what your grandfather wrote about choosing heart over institution," Kate suggested. "Every decision we make, we ask ourselves, what serves our children's long-term ability to lead with both competence and compassion?" What helps them understand that their privilege comes with genuine responsibility to serve others? William felt a profound sense of rightness about this approach. So when the advisor suggests that George should start attending more formal events, we consider whether each specific event helps him understand service and duty, or whether it's just about maintaining appearances. And we make sure all 3 children see that you and I are partners in this work, Kate added. That royal marriage isn't about one person diminishing themselves to support the other, but about both people bringing their strengths to shared responsibilities. As the evening deepened, they talked about their own relationship and how Prince Philip's observations had given them new perspective on their partnership. Kate had often wondered whether she was doing enough to support William's role, whether her desire to maintain some aspects of normal family life was somehow failing to meet royal expectations. Reading what my grandfather wrote about us made me realize that your instincts have been right all along, William told her. You haven't been adapting to royal life, you've been showing royal life how to evolve. The way you've maintained your authentic self while embracing your royal responsibilities has actually strengthened both. Kate felt tears welling up again. Sometimes I worried that I was being selfish, wanting to keep some things private, wanting the children to have normal experiences alongside their royal education. But reading his perspective made me understand that those weren't selfish desires, they were instincts about what would make us all stronger leaders. They discussed specific changes they wanted to implement gradually, more opportunities for the children to see their parents working together as a team, more authentic moments during public appearances where their genuine personalities could shine through appropriate royal behavior, more integration between their family values and their public service. I want George, Charlotte, and Louis to grow up seeing that being royal means using your platform to serve others, not just maintaining traditions for their own sake, William said, his voice filled with conviction. And I want them to see that their parents' love for each other actually makes us better at serving the country. Not worse, Kate leaned against his shoulder, feeling the deep satisfaction of finally being completely aligned with her husband about their family's future. Your grandfather's letters gave us permission to trust what we already knew in our hearts. That authenticity and duty don't have to be enemies. As they prepared to go inside, William pulled out one more document he had saved for this moment. A sealed envelope marked, "For William and Catherine together." Inside was a brief note in Prince Philip's handwriting. If you are reading this together, then you have learned to trust each other's wisdom completely. This is the greatest gift you can give the monarchy. Leadership that demonstrates how strength and vulnerability can coexist, how individual authenticity can serve collective purpose. Your children will inherit not just titles, but an example of what it means to lead with both competence and humanity. The institution will be safer in their hands because you showed them how to be both royal and real. Kate wiped away tears as William finished reading. The validation from someone who had spent decades navigating these same challenges felt like a benediction on the path they were choosing for their family. Tomorrow we start implementing this, William said, folding the letter carefully. Not dramatically, not with grand announcements, but gradually, thoughtfully, in ways that honor both tradition and evolution. Kate nodded, feeling more confident about their upcoming conversations with advisors, their decisions about the children's education, and their approach to public service. We show them that the future of the monarchy doesn't require choosing between being effective leaders and being authentic people. As they walked back toward the palace, hand in hand, both William and Kate felt the weight of generations of royal expectations shifting into something more sustainable and more hopeful. They were no longer trying to fit themselves into predetermined roles, but were instead reshaping those roles to accommodate their complete selves and their vision for their children's future. The evening had transformed uncertainty into clarity, doubt into determination. Prince Philip's private insights had given them historical perspective and familial blessing to trust their instincts about leadership, partnership, and parenting within the unique constraints and opportunities of royal life. 3 months later, Kate stood at the same window in Kensington Palace where William had watched her with the children on that transformative morning. But now everything felt different. The uncertainty that had clouded their family decisions had been replaced by a quiet confidence that radiated through all their interactions. The changes they had implemented had been subtle but profound. During their recent public appearances, people commented on how relaxed and genuine the family seemed. The children were still perfectly behaved, but their individual personalities shone through in ways that made them more relatable and endearing to the public. George had been allowed to ask questions during a recent visit to a science museum, his natural curiosity making the event feel more authentic and educational. Charlotte's love of dance had been incorporated into a visit to a performing arts school, where she participated enthusiastically rather than just observing formally. Louis's irrepressible energy, instead of being constantly contained, was channeled into appropriate moments of playful interaction that delighted onlookers. The meeting with the advisors had gone better than expected. When William and Kate presented their integrated approach to royal education and public service, they had done so with such clear conviction and thoughtful planning that even the most traditional advisors found it difficult to argue against their logic. "We're not abandoning royal protocol," Kate had explained during that meeting. "We're demonstrating that protocol can accommodate authentic personality and genuine human connection. Our children will be better prepared for their future roles because they're learning that effective leadership requires both competence and empathy." William had supported her explanation by sharing some of his grandfather's insights, carefully chosen excerpts that illustrated how previous generations had struggled with the balance between personal authenticity and public duty. Prince Philip recognized that the monarchy's survival depends on its ability to evolve while maintaining its core values of service and dignity. He had said the advisors had been impressed by the historical foundation for their approach and gradually became supporters rather than critics of their integrated family strategy. Kate's private moments with the children had also shifted. During bedtime stories, she found herself talking more openly about the importance of their future roles, but in ways that emphasized service and kindness rather than just duty and protocol. The children began to understand that being royal meant having opportunities to help people, not just obligations to follow rules. "Mummy, why do we go to so many places where people want to meet us?" Charlotte had asked recently. "Because when people see that our family cares about the same things they care about, kindness, learning, helping others, it reminds everyone that we're all working together to make the world better," Kate had explained. "We're not special because we're royal. We're royal so we can help in special ways." William had been amazed by how naturally these conversations flowed once they stopped trying to separate their family values from their royal responsibilities. The children's questions became opportunities for deeper understanding rather than challenges to navigate carefully. His relationship with his father had also evolved. During a recent private conversation, William had shared some of Prince Philip's observations about the pressures Charles had faced as a young heir. "Grandfather understood how difficult it was for you to balance personal authenticity with royal expectations," William had told his father. "He admired your willingness to care deeply about things that mattered to you, even when others criticized you for it." Charles had been deeply moved to learn about his father's private support and understanding. The conversation had opened new channels of communication between father and son, with Charles offering insights about the challenges William would face as his own role evolved. "Your grandfather was right about Catherine," Charles had said. "She has managed to be completely herself while becoming completely royal. That's an extraordinary achievement, and it's changing how the public sees all of us." The most significant change, however, was in William and Kate's marriage itself. The weight of uncertainty that had been pressing on both of them had lifted, replaced by shared purpose and mutual support. They no longer felt like they were trying to balance competing priorities, but rather like they were pursuing a unified vision of family and service. Kate often thought about the photograph Prince Philip had taken of her comforting William during a difficult moment. She now understood that he had captured something important, evidence that vulnerability and strength could coexist, that supporting each other made them better leaders rather than weaker ones. Their private conversations had become deeper and more trusting. William felt free to share his concerns about future responsibilities, knowing that Kate would offer both emotional support and practical wisdom. Kate felt confident expressing her ideas about public service and family management, knowing that William valued her insights as true partnership rather than just wifely support. On this particular morning, as Kate watched her family in the garden below, she saw the fruits of their transformation. William was teaching George how to use a camera to photograph the flowers they were planting, encouraging his son's interest in both nature and photography. Charlotte was helping Louis water the smaller plants, naturally taking on a nurturing role that would serve her well in future royal duties. And all of them were laughing together, completely comfortable being themselves while unconsciously preparing for their future roles. Kate's phone buzzed with a text from her private secretary. The documentary producers would like to include more family moments in the upcoming project. Should I tell them yes? 6 months ago, that request would have triggered anxiety and long discussions about privacy versus public interest. Now, Kate texted back confidently, yes, but with our usual guidelines. We want to show genuine family life within appropriate royal parameters. She no longer saw these decisions as choosing between competing values, but as opportunities to demonstrate how authenticity and royal dignity could strengthen each other. That evening, as Kate and William were putting the children to bed, George asked a question that showed how naturally he was absorbing their integrated approach to royal life. Daddy, when I'm king someday, will I be able to help people with the things I care about? Like you and Mummy do? William exchanged a meaningful look with Kate before answering. George, being king means you'll have incredible opportunities to help with whatever matters most to you. The most important thing is that you care deeply about helping others and that you never forget that leadership means service. And you'll have your family to support you. Just like Daddy has Mummy and we all have each other, Kate added, smoothing George's hair. The best leaders aren't people who pretend to be perfect. They're people who bring their whole hearts to helping others. After the children were asleep, William and Kate returned to the private garden where they had made their decision months earlier. The flowers they had planted with the children were now blooming, a visible reminder of how patience, care, and authentic nurturing could create something beautiful. I keep thinking about that last letter your grandfather wrote, Kate said, settling into their favorite spot on the garden bench. About how our greatest act of love might be our most private one. I think he meant that the love we show each other and our children when no one is watching is what makes us strong enough to serve others when everyone is watching. William nodded, feeling the deep contentment that came from alignment between values and actions. The future feels different now, not easier necessarily, but clearer. We know who we are as individuals, who we are as a family, and how both of those identities can serve the larger purpose we've inherited. As they sat together in the peaceful evening, both Kate and William felt the profound satisfaction of having found their authentic path forward. Prince Philip's private insights had given them permission to trust their instincts, but more importantly, they had given them historical perspective on the courage required to lead with both competence and humanity. The key William had received from his grandmother had unlocked more than just a study. It had unlocked a new understanding of how tradition and evolution could work together, how personal authenticity could serve public duty, and how love and leadership could be the same thing expressed in different ways. Their quiet tears that evening were not tears of sadness, but tears of relief, gratitude, and hope for the future they were creating together for their children and for the institution they would someday lead.